We're going to the ceramic studio, babes. I've got 2 mugs ready to glaze, so we're tackling that first. There's so many glazes and firing options to choose from here. It's awesome. For my first mug, I went with this glaze called Jamaican Waters and a glaze called Gloss White. I'm not really sure how these 2 glazes will look together, but that's part of the fun. I've also only glazed a few pieces prior to this, and I know this process is where you can really screw things up. If you choose a weird glaze combo or you add too much, you could get a really ugly result, so I'm a little bit nervous here. I dipped the first mug in the Gloss White, and now I have to let that dry for at least a few hours before I can go in with the second color. For the second mug, I picked this glaze called Nightshade, which is a nice purple. I don't want it to be as dark, so I'm just going to give it a quick little dip and hope that it's enough for the shade that I want. I had a bit of a hard time figuring out how to go about dipping this one because it has this half sippy lid on top, and I decided to pour some glaze inside, and well, I was not very graceful about it. It started dripping on the outer part of the mug, so I just grabbed that sucker and said, screw it, we're dunking her. Then I almost dropped her in the glaze bucket. Yikes. Anyways, I hope it turns out okay. I wiped off the bottom of that mug, and now she's ready to fire, and I'll come back to that first mug a little bit later. Moving on, I had 3 pieces to trim, starting with this flower pot. This was my first attempt at a flower pot, and I mean, she's not terrible. I wish I would have made her a little bit bigger though, because this thing is going to shrink, but I think I should still be able to put like a small succulent or something like that in here. I use this cool hole punching tool thingy to add a drainage hole at the bottom, and voila, we've officially got a flower pot. Now we're moving on to this plate with a really fugly bottom. This is why we trim. It's kind of an annoying step, but I also think it's a really important one because look at it now. Nice! Plate number 2, the bottom isn't as bad on this one. I decided to play around with this one a bit. I switched up the style and we'll see which plate turns out better. Now these guys are all ready to be put on the bisque shelf. I had 1 wedge ball of clay left over from my last class, so I decided to practice some throwing. I wasn't planning on doing this today, but I'm still pretty far from being able to make a nice cylinder, so I need all the practice I can get. I'm still struggling a bit with pulling, but I have figured out that when I use a sponge, it helps a lot. I actually think this is my best cylinder yet. However, this is where I ruined it. I wanted to play around with some tools. I had no idea what I was doing, and boom. Cylinder pulverized. I threw in the towel and then I went to go add that last layer of glaze to that first mug I started with. I can't wait to see how these turned out, and when I come in for my next class, I should have some more pieces ready to glaze. Pottery is hard, but it's also so much fun.